Daniel Cohn-Bendit has been active in the Green Party for decades. He's famous for his role as a student leader in the 1968 Paris student protests. His mother was French, his father from Berlin. Both were Jewish. Cohn-Bendit was born in Montauban, southwestern France in 1945, 4 days before the end of the Second World War. As the Allies advanced, French soldiers under the command of General Charles de Gaulle were locked in bitter fighting against German troops near Lake Constance in southern Germany. After the fall of the Nazis, France became one of the Allied occupying powers. The French wanted to exact revenge for 4 years of German occupation. Germany and France were arch enemies. Friendship was unthinkable. But just a few years later, the unbelievable occurred. At his private country residence, de Gaulle extended the hand of friendship to West German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer.
It was obvious that at some stage the French elite would realize, and the Germans too, that things could not go on like this. We can't all continue like this for the next 30 years. De Gaulle basically expanded a misunderstanding. For Adenauer, de Gaulle's outstretched hand was a logical continuation of Germany's ties with the West. For de Gaulle, it was about strengthening his position as a powerful counterweight to America.
In 1963, the two leaders signed the Franco-German Treaty of Friendship. From then on, the two countries began to coordinate their foreign policy. There were partnerships between cities, and university diplomas were mutually recognized. The Germans were delighted. But perhaps most important of all was the Franco-German youth movement that brought together young people from Germany and France. Cohn-Bendit studied at the University of Nanterre in Paris. He was there in 1968, the year of the student protests. At the beginning of May, the students in Paris made history, taking to the streets in protests that descended into riots. Cohn-Bendit was one of the leaders. A journalist asked him this question.
Could you tell us whether you're for the overthrow of capitalist governments in France, in the United States, in Germany?
Yes, everywhere.
By violent means?
Not again this question. You have heard what I said to your English confrère.
Cohn-Bendit said if the capitalist system could use violence to protect its privileges, then the students could also use violence to protect their interests. Cohn-Bendit invited German student leaders to the Paris universities to join forces. Later, French workers demonstrated in a general strike.
That was the symbol to us that everything is possible. It was like everyone was doped.
It was a boost to the Germans too. Previously, they had demonstrated alone against the Shah of Iran. Now, students in Germany and France were out on the streets. Cohn-Bendit was the connecting link. He was then expelled from France, prompting a public show of solidarity.
When I was expelled and hundreds of thousands marched through Paris saying, "We are all German Jews," that to me was one of the most powerful signs that the enmity between France and Germany had been overcome. And then having the Jewish element as a connection between Germany and France, that was amazing.
The barriers between France and Germany were fast disappearing, a movement reflected at government level. In 1968, Willy Brandt became German Chancellor and worked closely with French President Georges Pompidou. The 1970s saw the close friendship between France's President Valéry Giscard d'Estaing and Germany's Helmut Schmidt, a golden age in Franco-German relations, which saw a furthering of economic cooperation in particular. Then came François Mitterrand and Helmut Kohl. At the military cemetery in Verdun, they met to remember the dead of both world wars. A minutes-long clasping of hands became one of the most powerful symbols of French-German reconciliation. Just 5 years later, another barrier in Europe was removed. The Berlin Wall came down. Germany and Europe were reunited. A new era began in Berlin, a new challenge for Cohn-Bendit. Suddenly, old fears were reawakened in France. The Victory Column in the center of Berlin still bore the 19th century golden statue that symbolized German victory over France. Many French people feared the new, larger Germany.
1989 was difficult because the task was so huge. Because suddenly, in the midst of the crisis, Mitterrand and Kohl basically sought a solution by moving forward, by moving towards the euro, the integration of Europe, and German reunification.
Also Vertiefung Europas, deutsche Einigung.
Just play it cool. That was Cohn-Bendit's solution. And sure enough, the fears have subsided. Today, there are plenty of French people among the crowds of tourists at the Brandenburg Gate. Do you like Berlin? Asks Daniel Cohn-Bendit. Of course, comes the answer. More and more French citizens are moving to the German capital every year.
Okay, allez. Bonne journée. Au revoir. Au revoir.
Perhaps that's the most important sign of German-French reconciliation.